Welcome to TFI Tuesday, where members of the State Support Team, Region 5, will share tidbits of each of the tiered fidelity inventory features. We hope you will find these short discussions meaningful and beneficial to your PBIS team. And now, here's this week's TFI Tuesday tidbit.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of TFI Tuesdays, where the members of the State Support Team Region 5 will share tidbits of information that align with the critical features of the tiered fidelity inventory to provide a consistent message across our region. We hope you will find these short discussions meaningful and beneficial to your PBIS team. And now, here's this week's TFI Tuesday tidbit, which is all about precision problem solving.
Hello, Marla. Welcome back.
Hi, Jessica. Hope all is well with you.
Thank you. We have lots of teams that are digging into their data and discovering some concerning areas within their system. When referencing back to the training materials they received when they were first trained as a team, they remembered the need for precision problem solving. Can you tell us a little bit about what that exactly means?
Oh, Jessica, that is an awesome question to ask, because precision problem solving is the process of digging deeper into your PBIS data. Precision data helps place the problem in a context that our school systems can control, rather than placing the problem on our students. Precision data also helps us determine what interventions will work the best with the students and their behavior. The quality of decision-making depends on how well we precisely define the problem that needs to be solved.
Okay, so I hear you say that we need, quote, quality decision-making with the data that we have. We know the data is referenced several times in the TFI, but can you help us dig a little deeper into what the data-based decision-making entails?
Sure. Let me try here, because it is a very dense question. Understanding what data-based decision-making is and how it is useful is one of the essential learning outcomes for this episode. Informed decisions are the most effective decisions. When a decision is based on data, it is more likely to effectively address the true problem. Using data for decision-making involves defining the problem to be solved and clarifying what decision is to be made. For example, when you go to the doctor's office or to the ER, which I hope you don't have to do, but just in case, they do not simply take your blood pressure and then decide to remove your appendix. Quite the contrary. They make informed decisions based on the data and define the problem with precision to clarify the solution.
That's a helpful analogy. Can you help us understand what kind of data we should be reviewing?
By gathering data to use in our decision-making, we reframe problems and begin thinking about contextual factors such as location, time of day, and specific behavior instead of merely identifying problem students and repeat offenders. Data helps us ask the right questions so that way we can design the right solution. Data presents red flags that may be issues and need further inquiry, and then they help us narrow down the issue precisely. So the type of data that might be collected is beyond just the normal discipline data. You also have to think about maybe some of the adult data that you'll be collecting throughout the year, such as your walkthroughs or your SAS information or even your TFI. So again, sticking with that medical analogy, when you go to the emergency room or the doctor's office, the first thing they do is check your vital signs. By checking blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, and temperature, the physician has better indicators of overall health and well-being. Those were his data markers. By collecting this information, the doctor is better equipped to respond when you say, "I don't feel well," or "I have a problem."
That was very helpful. I heard you mentioning some student-level discipline data. Can you help us identify some questions we can ask our team when we're viewing this type of data?
Oh, absolutely. Again, Jessica, I think you have the best questions. When reviewing data and developing a problem statement with precision, school facilities want to think about 1. What is the problem behavior? 2. How often is the problem happening? 3. Where is the problem happening? Who is engaged in the behavior? When is the problem most likely to occur? And why is the problem sustaining?
Those are very helpful questions to guide our discussion. Thank you. Should the team always follow them in that order, or does it really matter which questions they ask first?
It's funny, many people ask, is there a particular order that we need to follow? The order in which we drill down into our data may vary, but the last question always has to be why. The why or perceived motivation is the most important question and the single most powerful feature within SWIS for building comprehensive data systems. However, we need to know the context and the level of the problem before the perceived motivation can be identified accurately. I know that it takes time to train school staff on consistently considering and identifying the perceived motivation, aka the function of the behavior. Initially, we might get it wrong, and that's okay because it becomes an opportunity to include more and better examples that will be relevant to the staff. Eventually, the shift towards function-based thinking allows the team to identify solutions to problems that are more likely to improve the school culture. Without knowing the function, our solutions are equally likely to make no impact and even make the problem worse. So, for example, you may hear something like, too many referrals. Oh man, September had more suspensions than last year. Gang behavior is increasing. Cafeteria is out of control. Those are all primary statements. They tell us next to nothing. A precision statement will give you the information that you need. So for example, there are more office disciplinary referral forms for aggression on the playground than last year. These are most likely to occur during first recess with a large number of students, and the aggression is related to getting access to the new playground equipment. Does that make it a little clearer, Jessica?
It does, thank you. I like that the precision statements go much deeper than the primary statement. They sound like something we can address and give us the opportunity to move away from admiring the data to acting upon the data. So once we get this far, what else do we need to do?
I oftentimes like to start with a few things that we need to be aware of. Before I ever begin to analyze my data, I start identifying critical needs. And this is where I can pinpoint areas of greatest need or concern. When looking at data, you may want to think through the lens, is it school-wide systems concern, non-classroom systems, classroom systems, targeted group interventions, or individual students? You may have actually heard, as I mentioned, those 5 items. You should have heard universal, tier 2, and tier 3 supports. So let's examine those vocabulary words a little closer so that way we can have a consistent understanding of each of those words. When you think of school-wide systems, it means that more than 40% of your students have received 1 or more office referrals or more than 2.5 office referrals per student. That means there's a systems concern. If it's non-classroom, it means that more than 35% of office referrals come from non-classroom settings. For example, gym, cafeteria, maybe recess, and more than 15% of the students referred are from those non-classroom settings. That would be a location concern. Classroom systems means more than 60% of the office referrals come from the classroom. 50% or more of the office referrals come from less than 10% of the classrooms. Target group interventions means that more than 10 to 15 students receive 5 or more office referrals. And then individual students means less than 10 students with 10 or more office referrals. Less than 10 students continue rate of referring after receiving targeted group interventions. Small number of students destabilizing over functioning of the school. So that would mean that we're looking at an individual or a tier 3 support. I know that sounded a little convoluted, but this is just the beginning.
Yeah, I appreciate your clarification, and I think it's helpful to think of the data in those different systems and not think of them as a completely separate part of our framework. That gives us the opportunity to consider more effective solutions to address these problems that are interfering with our success. Do you have any more advice on how teams should use their data for decision making?
Thanks, Jessica, for asking that, because there's always additional things for us to think about. Remember, we talked about the fact that by gathering data to use in our decision making, we can reframe problems and begin to think about contextual factors, such as location, time, specific behavior, instead of merely identifying problems, students, and repeat offenders. We also want to think about the fact that PBIS is a problem-solving framework. Without having the data in front of us, it will not allow us to make those decisions or put supports into place so that all of our scholars as well as our staff can be successful. Without looking at the data, it doesn't help us be able to identify also the different supports that we can also lend to each of our teachers. So that way specific locations such as classroom or gym, art, cafeteria, recess can have the appropriate supports in place for all scholars to be successful. But I think one of the most important things to think about is to start small. Take your time to ask those questions. And remember that the data is not about anything but to solve the situation and to put supports into place.
Well, thank you so much, Marla, for your insights on precision problem solving. I think this gave our listeners a great opportunity to reflect on their types of data and some initial steps for digging into that data in a more meaningful way. Would you be willing to come back and continue to help us learn how to use these statements for defining quality actions?
Of course, I would love to.
Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to support our teams at utilizing these precision problem statements to improve their systems. Until our next episode, I encourage our listeners to reflect on their current data sources and their protocol for reviewing their data. Does your team have access to the right data? How can you review the way your team reviews your own data? Thank you once again for joining us for TFI Tuesdays. Don't forget, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us at the SSTR5 PBIS team. Remember, you can find all of our TFI Tuesdays on our website. Until next time, be safe, be well, and remain positive.
Thank you for joining us for our TFI Tuesdays. We hope you'll join again next week to learn about additional TFI features. Until then, be safe, be kind, and be positive.